Somewhere in your home, right now, there is a lighter, a candle, a stove burner, or a matchbox. You are never more than a few steps from fire. And tonight, if you light any one of those things, you will inhale a tiny amount of smoke without even thinking about it. Your lungs will process it, your body will shrug it off. That tolerance, that quiet chemical truce between your cells and combustion, is not an accident. It was written into your DNA hundreds of thousands of years before anyone rolled a leaf and put it to their lips. The story of when humans started smoking is not the story you think it is. It does not begin with a cigarette. It does not begin with a pipe. It begins with a mutation that separated you from every other primate on Earth. To understand smoking, you have to forget about tobacco for a moment and think about fire. Humans have been sitting in smoke for at least 1 million years. In 2012, a team at the University of Toronto analyzed sediment layers deep inside Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa and found ashed plant remains and charred bone fragments dating back roughly 1 million years. That is the oldest, unambiguous evidence of controlled fire use by our ancestors. And controlled fire means controlled smoke. Every night, for hundreds of thousands of generations, your ancestors huddled in caves and around open flames, breathing in polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, dioxins, carbon monoxide. Smoke was the price of warmth. Smoke was the price of cooked food. Smoke was the air of home. But every other primate that breathed that much smoke would have been in serious trouble. In 2016, Gary Perdew and George Perry at Penn State published a study in Molecular Biology and Evolution that revealed something startling. Modern humans carry a mutation in a gene called the aryl hydrocarbon receptor, or AHR. This receptor governs how your body processes the toxic compounds in smoke. In every other primate, including Neanderthals and Denisovans, the AHR receptor is exquisitely sensitive. It metabolizes those toxins fast, almost too fast, flooding the body with reactive byproducts that damage cells. The human version is different. Our mutated AHR is between 100 and 1,000 times less sensitive. It processes smoke toxins slowly, gently, like a controlled burn instead of an explosion. We are, at the molecular level, built to sit in smoke. Perdew called it a possible evolutionary advantage, one that may have helped Homo sapiens outcompete Neanderthals who were using the same campfires but paying a steeper biological price. So the first chapter of smoking has nothing to do with pleasure. It has to do with survival. Your species didn't start smoking because it wanted to. It started tolerating smoke because it had to. And that tolerance became a door. But tolerance is not the same thing as seeking it out. Something else had to happen before a human would deliberately pull smoke into their lungs. And that something involves a different kind of chemistry entirely. Nicotine is not a gift. It is a weapon. The tobacco plant produces nicotine for one reason: to kill insects. It is a neurotoxin, evolved over millions of years to paralyze the nervous systems of anything small enough to chew on a leaf. A study published in PLOS Biology in 2004 by Baldwin at the Max Planck Institute for Chemical Ecology confirmed that when you strip nicotine from tobacco plants, herbivore damage increases dramatically. The molecule is a pesticide. But here is the accident at the center of this entire story. Nicotine happens to be an almost perfect molecular mimic of acetylcholine, one of the most important neurotransmitters in your brain. Acetylcholine governs attention, memory, muscle control, mood. When nicotine enters your bloodstream and reaches your brain, it slides into acetylcholine receptors like a wrong key that still turns the lock. Dopamine surges, focus sharpens. A faint wave of calm washes through the body. The insecticide and the neurotransmitter are shaped almost identically, by coincidence. 100 million years of plant evolution accidentally built a molecule that fits a receptor in your skull. So you had a species already adapted to breathing smoke, and you had a plant producing a molecule that, by sheer biochemical luck, felt good in a human brain. The question was never if humans would start smoking, it was when. But the answer is far stranger than a single date on a timeline. In October 2021, archaeologist Darren Duke of the Far Western Anthropological Research Group published a paper in Nature Human Behavior that rewrote the entire chronology. His team was excavating a hearth site in Utah's Great Salt Lake Desert, a camp used by hunter-gatherers near the end of the last ice age. 12,300 years ago, that desert was a marshland, full of waterfowl and wild plants. Among the duck bones and charred willow wood in that ancient fireplace, Duke's team found 4 tiny seeds. Charred tobacco seeds. The oldest direct evidence of human tobacco use anywhere on Earth. Before this discovery, the record belonged to 3,000-year-old nicotine residue inside ceramic pipes from Alabama. Duke pushed the timeline back 9,000 years in a single dig. But those seeds raise a question Duke himself couldn't answer definitively. Were they smoking it, chewing it, sucking the leaves? The seeds alone can't tell you. Pipes wouldn't appear in the archaeological record for another 9 millennia. What we know is that those hunter-gatherers carried tobacco to their campsite from foothills more than 13 kilometers away. They sought it out, they brought it home. They used it alongside fire. But tobacco wasn't the only thing people were smoking, and the Americas weren't the only place it was happening. In 2020, Corey Brownstein, then at Washington State University, published a study in Frontiers in Molecular Biosciences that identified the residue of smooth sumac in a 1,400-year-old stone pipe from central Washington state. It was the first scientific confirmation of a non-tobacco plant smoked in an archaeological pipe. His team's broader research suggested that indigenous North Americans were smoking roughly 100 different plant species, mixing them for medicinal, ceremonial, and social purposes. Tobacco was central, but it was part of a pharmacological vocabulary that spanned an entire continent. And on the other side of the world, people were inhaling smoke for entirely different reasons. In 2019, a team led by Yang Yimin and Ren Meng of the Chinese Academy of Sciences published findings in Science Advances from the Zherzhankel Cemetery, high in the Pamir Mountains of western China. Inside 2,500-year-old tombs, they found wooden braziers containing residue with unusually high levels of THC. Mourners had burned cannabis on hot stones in enclosed spaces and breathed the fumes during funeral rites. The Greek historian Herodotus described exactly this kind of practice among the Scythians in 440 BCE. Felt tents, heated rocks, hemp seeds, and fumes that made people, in his words, shout for joy. Smoking in the Old World didn't look like a pipe. It looked like a room filled with smoke and grief, and something that erased the edge of both. Here is where the story turns. We keep looking for the moment humans started smoking as if it were an invention, a discovery, a before and after. But that framing is wrong. Humans didn't start smoking. Smoking started the moment fire did. Every campfire was an inhalation event. Every cave was a smoke room. For 1 million years, your ancestors breathed in whatever the fire gave them. Plants, resins, animal fats, wood, bone. Frederick Danaway, writing in the Journal of Psychoactive Drugs in 2010, argued that the deliberate burning of substances for inhalation in enclosed spaces may be the single oldest method of altering consciousness in human history. Older than fermentation, older than chewing psychoactive plants, possibly older than language itself. The campfire wasn't just warmth and safety, it was the first pharmacy. And the mutation in your AHR gene wasn't just smoke tolerance, it was the biological ticket to 1 million years of accidental experimentation with every molecule that combustion could release. So when you ask when humans started smoking, you are really asking when a behavior so ancient it predates our species became specific enough to name. The 12,000-year-old seeds in Utah are not the beginning. They are simply the moment the behavior left a mark we could find. Smoking didn't start with tobacco. It started with fire, and it started with a body that was already prepared to receive it. Think about what this means for the shape of your own life. You carry the AHR mutation right now. Your acetylcholine receptors are the same ones that nicotine tricked in a hunter-gatherer's brain 12,000 years ago. Every candle you light, every barbecue you stand beside, every bonfire where you catch yourself breathing in a little too deeply, enjoying the smell a little too much, that is not a quirk. That is a 1 million-year-old inheritance expressing itself in your chest. The tobacco plant evolved nicotine to keep insects away. It never needed us. But somewhere on the foothills above a Pleistocene marsh, a human carried a fistful of leaves 13 kilometers back to a fire, and something closed the circuit between a plant's defense mechanism and a primate's hungry brain. The smoke rose. It has never stopped rising. And in the space between the flame and the breath, a species found something it could not name and has never been able to put down.